This is the Guns Magazine Podcast, episode number 81. Hi there, and welcome to the Guns Magazine Podcast. I'm your host and the editor of Guns Magazine, Brent Wheat. Thanks for joining us as we talk to the interesting people who make up the world of shooting, hunting, and the firearms industry. The supporting sponsor of the Guns Magazine Podcast is Hodgdon Powder. Established in 1947, the Hodgdon Powder Company has grown into the U.S. largest supplier of smokeless black powder and black powder substitute propellants. These great powders are distributed under the Hodgdon, IMR, Winchester, Ramshot, Accurate, Pyrodex, 777, Blackhorn 209, and GoX brands. For more information about all these great products, visit hodgdon.com. Today, we're talking with Randy Luth, the president of Luth AR, the founder of DPMS and Panther Arms, a well-known pioneer in the world of hunting with the modern sporting rifle, and a true gun industry insider. Randy recently wrote an open letter to the firearms industry to rally support for ousting NRA Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre by boycotting the NRA and the upcoming annual convention in Houston. He makes a good case for why withholding financial support for the National Rifle Association is probably the only way we commoners are going to affect change in the kingdom of the NRA. Now here's my chat with Randy Luth. Well, good morning, Randy.
Good morning to you, Brent.
Thanks for taking our call. How is it in lovely Minnesota today?
Minnesota, well, politically or weather-wise?
Let's just stick with the weather.
Yeah, we could spend a couple hours on the politics of Minnesota, but no, it's been kind of a cool and gloomy spring so far, and today is not much better.
I thought we weren't talking about politics.
Yeah.
Well, that obviously leads into our discussion today, which is the NRA and its problems. And you are the president of Luth AR. You founded DPMS and Panther Arms, and you have been a very significant figure in the firearms industry. And you have come out as one of the louder voices that is saying enough is enough. We need to fix this NRA thing. And what really caught everybody's attention was we had on the podcast here, we had Jim Shepard, the publisher of the Outdoor Wire, and he gave a great discussion of this same problem. And then he printed a letter that you wrote, an open letter to, as it says, dear friends and Second Amendment supporters. And let me read a little bit of that. It starts with, Wayne LaPierre, go away! Exclamation point. And then you say, after watching this train wreck over the last 2 years, it's time for the firearms industry to assist in removing Wayne LaPierre from our beloved NRA. And then it goes on, and in closing it says, as a lifetime member of the NRA and a member of the Hunters Leadership Forum, I have suspended all gifting legacy donations as well as HLF donations. In the meantime, I have donated similar dollars to other pro-gun organizations to fight the fight. Once new leadership is installed, I will reinstate my donations and support the NRA as I have done for 4 decades. We need the NRA, but we need new executive leadership and board of directors. I ask that you stand with me. We can and will be heard loud and clear. We can right the sinking ship. Begin the boycott. So, Randy, talk a little bit about your background with the NRA and what brought you to this point of writing this letter.
Well, sure. Thanks, Brent. First of all, I just want to make it clear that I'm not here in any intention to try and destroy the NRA, although sometimes negativity can be thought that way. I'm a staunch supporter of the NRA and our gun rights and the Second Amendment, always have been, always will be. So I'm not trying to kill the NRA. I'm trying to, like I said, right the ship. There's definite problems within the NRA, and it's been brought to light over the past few years, and a lot of it through depositions. The NRA is not going to go away. The NRA will survive. It will overcome this mess. But they are in deep trouble financially. They claim they've got money, but I've got documents to prove otherwise. Wayne LaPierre, he's done a great job for the NRA. He's been there 30 years this year, I believe. He's a great spokesperson. He's wholesome and sincere on his presentations. But as we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years, as these developments have happened in court and depositions have been given, it's quite apparent that he's not done a very good job from a leadership standpoint, and doesn't appear to have done a very good job on the business side of it as well. And the numbers, the issues, the facts are indicative of that. NRA revenues in 2016 were $367 million. In 2019, the last records available, the revenue was $291 million. So that's like 26% decrease.
Yep.
And that's because a lot of members have left. You look at Wayne's salary. And I'm not, I'm okay with $900 million. That's par for the course for those types of nonprofits. But in 2019, after the substance hit the fan, he took in $1.8 million, almost $1.9 million in salaries in 2019. When other employees were furloughed or took a pay cut. And the records don't indicate that the executives, the top 10 executives at the NRA in 2017 were about $7 million in salaries. 2018 is about close to $9 million. 8.6 million. In 2019, 8.7 million. So did the top 10 guys and gals take a discount on their salary? Doesn't appear so. Wayne LaPierre got a bonus in 2018, $455,000 for a bonus. In 2018, with his bonuses and other compensations, he was at $2.2 million, but yet revenues had went down. So, we can go on and on with the facts as to why this guy has to leave and get some new people in there. And we've all talked about the board of directors, and a lot of the board of directors are friends of mine. And a lot of board of directors, they do get complacent. I've been on boards myself. I don't think that I was ever complacent. I was somewhat outspoken, and you have to be, because you have a huge responsibility to protect the company or the organization that you represent on the board. And we've not seen that except for a few. Colonel Brown is by far the most outspoken, and he's been right on point. And now I guess he's not nominated. So for all these reasons, including all the depositions that have come out, we've all heard about the $270,000 paid for clothing, the private jets for Wayne and his family and friends flying around the world or the country. Wayne had to pay back $300,000 for his illicit personal gains, that the news media dug all that up. So he pays it back after the fact. What if nobody would have caught it?
Yep.
Then what? Their NRA spent, talk about politics. What have they done? They spent in 2020, the NRA spent $16 million to elect Trump. 2016, they spent supposedly around $31 million. So half as much less. Why is that? That's because they're fighting lawsuits. I've never seen or heard of a nonprofit organization that is involved in so many lawsuits. The first major one was the Carry Guard insurance, right?
Yeah.
We've heard about that to a certain extent. Supposedly, the NRA had to pay back $2.5 million to the state of New York. I don't know if that was a penalty for selling insurance products without a license. I presume that was Carry Guard.
Yep.
Who in the hell is doing the due diligence at the NRA not to dig up the fact that you have to have a license to sell insurance?
Yeah.
That's bad management.
Well, you were talking numbers there. One that really grabbed me, the NRA's paid $100 million to lawyers over the last few years, and very little of that was to promote Second Amendment issues. It was to deal with all the internal strife.
Absolutely. It was the legal fees for the Carry Guard insurance, if that's what that $2.5 million was for. Obviously, that was the beginning of it. So then you sue the state of New York. Well, I probably get that. You want to countersue. But then state of New York comes out swinging, and here we are involved in that lawsuit. And the depositions have indicated, $17 million in 90 days to the legal firms. The bankruptcy was, who knows, 10, 15, 20 million for bankruptcy legal fees. Who knows what it is? Anything in those types of numbers are crazy. That money, if you look at, let's say that in 2020 the revenues were 300 million, and you're spending 30 million. You're spending 10% of your revenue on legal fees, or 100 million over 2-3 years, supposedly. Come on, that money's supposed to go to elect the people that we need to represent us, and that didn't happen, and maybe that's why Trump didn't win, because the NRA didn't do a good enough job, because they're fighting fights elsewhere. Exactly.
And, you brought up the board of directors, and I, like you've got a lot of friends on that board of directors, and I'm not saying there's anybody that's got nefarious intent. I don't know every single director, but most of them are folks that really want to support the mission. But, I've served on boards also. When you've got 76 people on a board of directors, that's a recipe for absolutely zero oversight. I mean, it's hard to get 15 people to agree on anything, but 76, not so much.
No, I mean, everybody's been saying that. And I don't know the reason why there's 76. It makes no sense to me. You look at, I've done some comparisons with some other nonprofits at the similar 300 million revenue columns, and I don't think there's any that I've found. I know there's none that I've found. I haven't done deep research on that, but a 12-person board seems to be more realistic for many reasons. And 76, I don't know what the thought process there is. If you can get more votes for yourself, for your cause, with more members. But people need to look at the 990 tax returns and just look at certain board members, former board members, current board members. They're getting compensation. Marion Hammer, she's paid $220,000 last year, the year before, or the year before that. And I don't know that she's a current board member or not, but $220,000, and then other board members are getting $40,000, $50,000, $60,000. Well, if somebody's giving you money, maybe you're going to like them more, or you're going to vote for them more. I hope that's not the case, but that 2018, the NRA paid Tom Selleck $476,000. What was that for? I mean, he's a great guy, obviously, and he's a celebrity, and he does good things for the NRA, but who approved that?
It's amazing. Maybe, well, it was probably mustache upkeep, a lot of that.
I don't know. The Charity Navigator did some research on that. They kind of look at nonprofits. They've issued a high concern advisory warning for the NRA.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad. And why is that? It's not because of the members. It's not because of industry. It's because of a bunch of elitists in Washington, D.C. that are operating the NRA and been getting away with whatever they've been doing for decades.
Yep. Now, you've, I'm sure, read some of the testimony, as have I, that Wayne gave, and depositions in the recently concluded Texas bankruptcy hearing, which was dismissed in bad faith, which pretty much all my knowledgeable observer friends said that was a foregone conclusion. It was going to happen that way, but it is now official. But now Wayne and many of the upper echelon are on record of having testified under oath. Reading some of that, what was your feeling? I mean, I felt like Wayne came across as tremendously unprepared.
Brent, I read the 77 pages of Ackerman McQueen's lawsuit. I think there was 150 pages from, and after about 30 pages, I discontinued reading it, but I've picked up and heard of some of the comments during the depositions. And why would the NRA attorneys, why would they allow that to happen?
Exactly.
Why would you drag the NRA through hundreds of hours of depositions, because obviously a lot of people that were deposed, I don't think they were that favorable to the executive vice president or to the other staff. You had one. I think he was a former executive. He pled the fifth multiple times.
Yeah, I believe it was their CFO.
The retired CFO, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I forget. But all these things, you look at the depositions. All the depositions are going to do is create more depositions and more fodder and more bad press for whatever else is next. And who knows what's next? What happens if there was criminal activity or criminal intent? And I'm not suggesting that there was, but reading some of the depositions and Wayne LaPierre stating multiple times during depositions and other depositions from other people that he apparently said, I hired Bill Brewer to keep me out of jail, if that's true. I mean, why would you say that if there wasn't some concern?
Exactly.
So what if something more comes out through more depositions? Because evidently they could only, during the trial, the bankruptcy trial, they could only choose, I think, 10 witnesses per side or 10 depositions per side. I mean, there's I'd like to talk to Wayne Sheets. Let's depose Wayne Sheets. Furthermore, if there's any culpability, maybe there's some board of directors that need to be looked at,
right?
From a lawsuit standpoint, waste, fraud, and abuse, not doing your duties. I don't even know if that applies, but come on. I mean, it's just sad that the board of directors are the only ones. The members, right? They vote for the board of directors. And the board of directors evidently is the only one that can get rid of the EVP. So why hasn't that happened for 2 years? All these things were accusations at first, but now there's been depositions. So what's the board doing? Why don't they have an emergency meeting, have their vote? I don't know if it has to be done at the annual meetings or if it can be done in an emergency executive session meeting to vote this guy out. I think they need, 75% to vote in favor?
Yeah.
Well, evidently that didn't happen at 2019 or 2020 meeting. Maybe it would happen today. But why wouldn't you step down? Why would Wayne LaPierre not step down? Why is he dragging all of us through this embarrassment nationally and worldwide? When if he would have just resigned in 2019, all of this, not all of it would have went away. Obviously, the New York Attorney General, she's out to get us. So regardless of Wayne LaPierre, if he goes away, she's still going to pursue it, sadly. But if he would have stepped down, all of this other activity from the anti-gun news media, they would have most likely stopped their deep dive. And here we are. $100 million supposedly in legal fees. Trump lost. I still think that he would have won if the NRA would have had their eye on the ball and they would have spent the money in the proper places instead of going to attorney's fees representing lawsuits that appear to be self-inflicted. I mean, Ackerman McQueen, I don't know anything about them other than they're charging $20-30 million a year for a $300 million a year operation. That's 10%.
Yep.
That seems to be a little bit high. And they've done some great things, obviously, with the messaging, but there appears to be, or there appeared to used to be, a pretty cozy relationship between the executives at NRA and the executives at Ackerman McQueen. So all these things have led us to where we're at today, and it's just gotten to the point where, I talk to industry people. I'm still in the industry. I talk to competitive shooters and hunters and industry people like myself, and I've not talked to one that disagrees with me in my arena. There's other board members that think differently, and there's other people running for the board that think differently. But my point is the only way, for 2 years, they've tried to get rid of Wayne in their own way, whatever that is, the votes, the not votes, the support, and nothing's happened. So my point is, if you want to get results, it all comes down to the checkbook, to the pocketbook. So as soon as revenues decline even more and the company's in the red even more, then maybe people will start to resign, or maybe the board will get some courage, which they've been lacking, and make the tough decision.
Yep.
And they're not, and they haven't. Hopefully they will, but September's a long ways away. You're going to have the annual meetings in Houston on Labor Day weekend. Hopefully it's not 95 degrees and humid. Hopefully there's not any protests going on unrelated to the gun industry. I mean, that could be a disaster.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Brent. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it feels like to me the tide has changed. And I think the Texas trial, as much as the NRA was hoping that would ease the road somewhat for them, I think it did completely the opposite, because, as you said, we've all been hesitant kind of to criticize the NRA. But now, whether you're talking rank and file members, you're talking industry folks, when we've done a couple of shows on this very topic, I expected some backlash, and we got none. In fact, it was completely the opposite. We got an overwhelming input from listeners and readers saying, yeah, it's time. We've got to do something here. So I'm hoping that we're ratcheting up the pressure on Wayne and the board, and like you said, either just pressure or financially, to maybe it is time now. The tidal wave has finally broken over the seawall. So talk about some of those things that you want to see done, and you're taking a lead on to pressure Wayne to take his golden parachute and go quietly into that dark night.
Sure. The letter that I wrote, it's a different approach. The other approaches haven't worked. Lawsuits have not forced him to retire or go away. The forums, AR15.com and AmmoLand, all the other, everybody indicates the same thing that you just said and what I've heard from the industry, and that is people have come to the realization now that it's not a coup by the media. It's a coup that's created by the elites and the executives at the NRA. They caused this problem. Mm-hmm. They got caught. It's that simple.
Yep.
And so now what do you do, right? My approach has been, well, as sad as it sounds, you got to boycott the NRA. So we can all go down there, as somebody suggested, and all protest outside. Well, you just get washed in with the other protesters that hate guns.
Yep. So
if we go down and protest at the convention to get rid of Wayne, that I think would be rather negative, because it's going to get washed in with the anti-gunners. So I think that some of the numbers indicate that the revenue from the convention is somewhere around 12 or 20 million. I forget off the top of my head, but it's a substantial amount of not only exposure and PR, but can you imagine every reporter in the United States, if not the world, is going to be down there on the streets interviewing people. Mm-hmm. So my approach is a different approach. Might be right, might be wrong, but hit them in the pocketbook. If the exhibitors stay away and hold back their money, and if we can get a coalition of key industry people, which we're working on, to send a letter to the board and to the executives that we in the industry are taking a stand now. And we're not going to donate. Maybe boycott NRA publications, as hard as that is for me to say. That's not fair, but you've got to hit him financially so that this guy will go away. And once he's gone and the fix is in place and the replacements are in place, the NRA will come back stronger. We talked about, Brent, the members. The NRA claims there's 5 million members, but in depositions, I think they indicated it was, 4.7. It wasn't 5, it was under 5.
Yeah.
But rounded up, I guess. And my point has always been, and I'm not involved in nonprofits and marketing for nonprofits, I'm involved in marketing AR-15s and firearms products. But you've got to change on the marketing side. There's got to be a change within the NRA direction. On the boycott side, the industry, by boycotting, not exhibiting there, then when they're picking the booths this week, they might realize, well, geez, a lot of people aren't coming. And I've talked to a lot of people in the industry that aren't going, not necessarily because of what I've said, but because it's Labor Day weekend, because everybody's so busy, because you can't get product, because of inflation, because of the cost of going. Who knows? They might not get enough numbers to run it. They can still have their annual meetings, obviously, but the convention maybe not. So my point is we in the industry leaders, and I'm just a small fry, but if the big industry people can sit down in a meeting with Wayne LaPierre and the executives and tell them straight up, face to face, you need to go. Ollie North tried that. That didn't work. He got thrown out. Richard Childress, I believe, resigned. What happened to Pete Brownell? I mean, did he get forced out by Wayne? I don't know. But there's all kinds of strange things that were happening to protect that little dynasty at the executive level. So my whole point is the industry needs to look at stepping up and boycotting.
Yeah. And, one of the best ideas I've heard, and I've heard it from a couple of places, but our own Roy Huntington brought it up first. I'm loath to quit the NRA, but there are actually associate memberships available for $10 a year, and they make it virtually impossible to find. It's somewhere on the website. You have to Google it. But I may do that myself because I want to remain a member, but I don't want to send my $25 or whatever it is now to $30. But for $10, that keeps me on the rolls, and more importantly, it keeps our numbers up so that the politicians in the midterms in 2022 understand that there's a lot of folks. And like you said, I think if we can affect this change, it may be for the strongest NRA we've ever seen, because I think so many folks are willing to come back and willing to put their money where their mouth is. And with all these new gun owners, it might be a glorious day if we can just get Wayne and company to decide to, as I said, hit their golden parachutes.
Yeah, no, it will be. It will be. It will be. A lot of people don't like the NRA. When you have 100 million gun owners in the United States approximately, and you only have 5 million members of the NRA, that there's a disconnect there. Mm-hmm. And when you have a program that's been in place for 30 years, a lot of people who aren't involved in business, and they're probably making the decisions, they're just going to stick with the old way.
Yep.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. So we're not going to try anything new because it might fail. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you're stagnant at 4 to 5 million members, depending on the political situation every 4 years, then you got to try some new stuff. And I'm sure they are, but it's obviously not working. So we need new members. I think the high pressure sales with the telephone calls, I think that upsets more people than brings them in, even though that's one of their biggest fundraisers. I think they bring in over $100 million in revenue from memberships. But why can't that be $150 million or $120 million? So that's part of fixing the problem on the marketing side.
So, Randy, obviously you're plugged in. What would be some of the things you'd like to see if we can get Wayne out of there?
Well, people would ask, what would you do to fix it? And just some of the thoughts that I had is we've all talked about this. First of all, you've got to reduce the board members somewhere around 12, not 76. And I think they have to have a 75% approval. Change that to 60%, similar to the Senate. So if 60% of the board members, whether it's 12 or 76, 60% vote to approve, that might be better. Term limits. Let's put term limits on the EVP. Wayne's been there 30 years. I don't know of any other nonprofit that's had an EVP or a CEO for 30 years. Board members as well. I I mean, these are thoughts for people to think about, including leadership or lack of leadership. On the board, let's get more industry people on the board. We in the industry, we know we're selling. If it wasn't for the manufacturers of firearms and ammunition and accessories, there's no reason for an NRA. So why shouldn't the board have more key industry people on the board versus celebrities, politicians, doctors? Yeah, I mean, all those people own guns, but we in the industry know what's going on. So I'd like to see a higher percentage of industry people on the boards. Why not have so members can feel more comfortable and get engaged with the board members? Why not have Zoom meetings with a certain amount of board members quarterly?
Yeah.
So we, the members, can look at the board members on a Zoom meeting and say, let's do this, let's do that. Why aren't you doing this? Another idea is have at least, we have basically now Harrisburg Convention and the NRA Convention. I suggest 2 or 3 conventions per year instead of one. Have one on the eastern seaboard, the western coast, not in California, obviously, but and then the middle U.S. throughout the year. Because the conventions bring attention and awareness, and it brings income. And of course, move the headquarters to Texas or South Dakota or somewhere pro-gun type state, not in Washington, D.C. Keep your ILA or keep your lobbying effort office in D.C., but get the headquarters out of anti-gun town.
Yeah.
Hire the best nonprofit membership expert in the USA. Hire the best digital marketing person for nonprofits. Buy everybody's mail list. I say at these secret meetings that the NRA has been having, which I call secret, they might not agree with me. Let's record them. Let's put them on audio or TV so the members can see what's going on.
I laugh because I don't see that happening.
No, but if people can think about it, maybe it can get implemented. Maybe the board will talk about it. They might not want it, but maybe the members can engage themselves.
Exactly.
You've got 7 million first-time gun buyers last year, supposedly. Why not give them a free NRA membership for the first year?
Yep.
So work with the industry people. Once you have them, then it's not easy to retain them, but if you're doing a good job, then you can. Or 2-for-1 membership. Buy one membership at full price, and your spouse or relative gets the second one free.
Yep.
All committees need oversight. What's happened, I think, with the NRA is, the nominating committee, I don't know how it works. It's confusing to me, but it sure seems like the nominating committee is cherry-picked to somebody's favor.
Yeah.
We need independent outsider auditor on the audit committee, not, again, the cherry-picked favorites. So an outside auditor representative sits in on the audit committee so that these alleged things don't happen anymore. Restructure the nominating committee. I think that's terribly unfair for somebody to run for the board that could be very well deserving. We've talked about the marketing side of it. I think NRA television or a version thereof, American Rifleman's a pretty good program, but more TV coverage I think might work. Share mail lists, get the industry to share a mail list both ways to get the message out to help support the NRA. Cooperative marketing between the industry and the NRA. So, new executive vice president, who do you put in? I'm sure that's the board members have struggled with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris Cox obviously would seem to make sense. Don Trump Jr., possibility. Richard Childress, possibility. But it's got to be a business person, I think.
Yeah.
If you put a business person as EVP and then that executive vice president has whoever he chooses on the ILA side, he's going to oversee that organizational chart on the ILA side, and then an operations person to run the NRA. So And that might be the way that it is now, but it sure doesn't appear to be. So those are just a few of my ideas, and we need a new change at the NRA, and I hope we get it soon.
Yeah. Well, a lot of great suggestions.
And one point that we need to talk about is I have withdrawn our legacy estate planning from the NRA. I have withheld a considerable amount of money from HLF, my last two payments. But I have been donating to the other groups, NSSF. I wrote a big check for Chris Cox and the coalition in Georgia to try and win Georgia. So I've been taking my money. I'm not keeping the money that normally would have went to the NRA.
Sure.
I'm putting it elsewhere to help fight the fight. And there's a class action lawsuit that's still going on, too, that is going to come to light later this year. And a lot of people don't like to hear that. However, that's just another way to get Wayne out of there. And that class action lawsuit is forthcoming, will generate more depositions and more information. And one other question I had, Brent, is let's say, and hopefully this won't happen, but what if the New York Attorney General prevails on the dissolution of the NRA? Then what? Where do the assets go? Do the assets go to the state of New York? Because if it's dissolved, then what, do the members get the assets? Do they divvy up assets to the members?
Wow, that's a good question I've not heard asked.
Yeah, nobody's brought that one up yet.
I would be happy to run Shooting Illustrated. I'm sure Ed would be happy working for me. Ed, if you're listening, love you, man.
That's good. So there's a lot of things with the class action lawsuit. I think it's $65 million base. That's sadly going to develop more legal fees on behalf of the NRA. But if that class action lawsuit prevails, that money goes back to the members. Yeah.
Well, it's so unfortunate that, I guess it's smart in a way that Wayne is blaming, anti-gunners, gun hatred for all this mess. And that's an easy target. And I think most folks were buying that. But I think, as I've said, the tide has changed a bit. And yeah, Letitia James, she hates us, hates our industry, hates guns. We get that. But unfortunately, because of some pretty poor decisions, and I will say it, greed, we have played right into their hands on this one.
Yeah. But we had no choice.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's disclosed, nobody knew about this stuff 3 years ago.
Yeah.
I think trace.org did the first deep dive research through 990 tax returns. You go through which I did. I went through every 990 tax return since 2017, 18, 19.
Oh, wow.
And looked at them in detail. And there's some surprises in there. I'm going to stop working on that just because it takes a lot of time and I got a business to run. But I think there's some gold nuggets if you start comparing old to new.
Yeah.
Before and after.
Interesting.
There's more to come. There's no doubt. Sadly, there's more to come. If this guy would just go away, we can get back to business and get back to winning the House in 2022 and 2024. We can get back in office with a pro-gun guy or gal.
Well, Randy, well said, well researched, and thank you for being one of the leaders on this. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to take the industry, great hue and cry from the industry, and from our side of it, the gun media. We need to be working hand in hand with the industry and just saying, look, it's well past time. Wayne, for all your good, it's just time to go.
Well said.
Well, Randy, thanks for talking to us, and you have my phone number anytime you want to talk about this, because this is probably, in my book, one of the most serious issues facing the Second Amendment and gun owners right now, because we've got to have the NRA fighting on our behalf, and so we gotta solve this little family dispute and get it fixed, so going forward we can have our rights protected.
I agree 100%, and like I said, the NRA will prevail because it is the strongest organization in our gun rights arena.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Randy, on the Guns Magazine podcast.
Great. Thank you, Brent. Talk soon.
Randy makes a whole lot of sense, and I hope you'll consider taking his advice. We need the NRA more than ever, but if the management stays the same, the organization might just be doomed. And with that, we hope you're enjoying the Guns Magazine podcast. Guns Magazine was first in the business, and we're bringing you the most interesting chats in the gun world. If you've got questions or comments about the show, please email me. That's editor@gunsmagazine.com. Make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast catcher, YouTube, and of course, at gunsmagazine.com. And while you're online, don't forget to check out our great sister publications, American Handgunner Magazine at americanhandgunner.com and americancop.com. We'd also appreciate it if you'd share a favorite episode or some kind words on your own social media. That's it for this episode of the Guns Magazine podcast. For the entire staff at FMG Publications, I'm Guns Magazine editor Brent Wheat. Now get out there and get shooting.